All right, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Today is going to be one of our Shooting the Bull podcasts. We're going to try and do more of these. As most everybody knows, we put up on our social medias a couple of polls asking everybody's thoughts on what you guys wanted from the podcast from us, and whether that be, how-tos or tips and tactics, hunting stories, things like that. And it sounds like a lot of people wanted quite a few different things, but some of the things they wanted was just talking about some of hunting stories, throwing in a little bit of tips and tactics in there as well. So we're going to start bringing that to you a little bit more often. At least try to do it once a week for you guys, so that you are not only entertained with the stories, but then also give you guys a little help on certain things. The great thing about us here at eHunter is we hunt several states across the United States, and so we can bring tips and tactics and stories to you guys from those hunts and experiences. So with me today I have Seth. Seth, what's up, man?
Oh, not much. How are you?
Doing good, man. Doing really good. It's kind of late though.
It is getting late,
We
but
gotta stop recording these podcasts late at night.
that's the best time. That's when we get the most canned and Taryn. We get his real feelings.
Dude, that's actually a really good point. I get tired and I just start talking. So, oh gosh. Well, I'm excited about this podcast. This is going to be a lot of fun. I hope that the people that listen really get a chance to enjoy these, and helps kill a little bit of time in the off season of hunting, and then also kill some time while you're out hunting or doing whatever you do. I'm a runner, and so when I'm running, I always I stick my ear pods in and listen to podcasts. So um, that's when I like to enjoy them. So hopefully everybody else gets to do that as well. So before we get started, though, as always, we want to thank our sponsors, the people that make this whole thing possible. First and foremost is Vortex Optics. Super stoked with Vortex and some of the stuff that I've been using lately. I just mounted up my Razor rifle scope. It's the Razor Gen 2. It's already set up for the MOA and all that. I mean, it's a pretty amazing scope. If you haven't looked through one of those Razor rifle scopes, dude, they're amazing. Seth, have you ever used one?
I have not used a razor. No. I've got my eye on either the Strike Eagle, I think is what they call it, or the Diamondback Tactical for my next one. But I've
Nice.
never actually looked through a razor. So
Dude, Mark says that Mark Boardman at Vortex says that the Strike Eagle, he's like, it's a pretty impressive scope for the price point. I mean, the glass is amazing, but then it does everything else. It's got the um, elevation turret on it. I mean, it pretty much does everything that you want it to do.
yeah, those two are kind of catching my attention. So they'll probably be my next one.
Well, my uh, kind of history with them, with Vortex scopes, or the Viper PST Gen 2s, and they're amazing. They're they're amazing scopes, but I gotta say, nothing compares to that Razor. It is unreal. It's definitely that upper echelon of optics. So, anyways, we appreciate Vortex. They sponsor and everything that we do at eHunter. We have a great relationship with them, and appreciate everything that they do. Check them out, vortexoptics.com. Tell them that eHunter sent you over there. Appreciate that. And then also, I want to send out a shout out to PhoneSkope for sponsoring the podcast for us again. PhoneSkope is kind of down in it's the brainchild of a hometown close to mine down in southern Utah, and know the guys over there really well. Those guys are awesome, really good hometown guys, and create some pretty amazing products. And just this week, I ordered a new phone scope. So I got the iPhone 12 Pro Max. That's a mouthful. Got the new phone scope case for it with the adapter, and is pretty legit. So I'm playing golf this weekend, but next week I'm going to put it to good use. So, anyways, appreciate them and sponsoring us here. Check them out, phonescope.com. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us. I can answer pretty much every question you have about PhoneSkope. I've been using them for years. Absolutely love their products. So we really appreciate them. So tonight on the podcast, today, whenever you guys are listening to this podcast, we're going to talk a little bit about elk hunting. Share some stories with you guys, some tips and tactics, hopefully along the way. And so, Seth, I'm going to kind of turn it over to you and kick it off. What are you thinking? What kind of elk story should we talk about tonight?
Well, I know, like I say, you're definitely more of an elk hunter than I am. I have a few stories. I've been on a lot of like helper hunts, but actually hunting, I've only been on a couple. But I have a
Helper
few in
hunts.
mind.
What's a
Yeah,
helper
help
hunt?
helping people out.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah. So I'm not the hunter, but I've helped people.
Oh, you're guiding, unofficial guiding.
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly family, so it's just helping family. But yeah,
Nice.
so it's yeah, it'll be a good time. I'd say you've probably had a more luxurious elk hunting career than I have, but
Oh, I don't know that I'd put it that way. I mean, I haven't had those amazing tags like some people have. Those limited entry tags in Utah, or even like those high point tags here in Colorado. Man, gosh, I'd love to have one of those. I never will, but it'd be awesome to have one.
real the old point creep, man.
It's crazy with elk hunting. Yeah, I mean, it's just everywhere you go. It's that point creep is ridiculous. And you know what's funny? Wow, I'm already gonna take us on a tangent. Is so Curtis drew out for New Mexico this year, and I'm kind of like leaning towards the way that New Mexico does it, which is just an all out lottery draw. You know, you don't build points. It's just luck of the draw kind of a thing, and I'm almost liking that better than this whole point creep situation we got going on.
Right. Yeah, it's a tricky deal because you're going in, and every year it's basically the lottery. But if you get lucky enough to draw a tag, you're not worried about never drawing it because of point creep. You always have that small chance, and it's equal across the board. So it's kind of pick your poison. It's wait a lot of years and deal with point creep, or you may go your whole life and never draw that New Mexico tag, but everybody's got an exact fair shake at it.
Exactly, exactly. It's fair for everybody. So, what kind of elk hunts have you been on? Well, so yeah, tell us about some of the elk hunts you've been on. Whether you're helping or actually, let's start with the elk hunt that when you're the hunter. Tell us that
Okay.
story.
Okay. So I will take you back to 2003. Um, when in 2003, I was 14 years old or 15, one of the two. Utah opened a section of land that there hadn't really been an elk hunt, and it kind of bordered a couple um, limited entry elk units. And they opened this up for open bull, um, and they also added a youth elk hunt on the unit. Me being a youth, thought it was a pretty good idea to draw or apply. And if you got lucky enough, the youth hunters got the first crack and were able to hunt these bulls during the rut with a rifle. The general season permits that were going to happen later as an open bull permit, they had to hunt them in middle of October. So anyways, we applied and I ended up drawing. So going into the hunt, we basically had the mindset of anything with antlers was going to get shot. New area, new hunt. We didn't really know what to expect. So my dad started talking to a number of different guys that he knew had spent some time in the area, and they pointed us kind of in the direction of a certain mountain range, and told us that's where the elk were and that's where we needed to be. So opening morning comes, and this particular mountain range, there's roads all around it, but the actual mountain itself, there was only one way to get there, and that was hoofing it. So we started in the dark, got up on top, and was seeing some elk sign, but hadn't seen any elk yet. Got to be about, I don't know, 7:30 in the morning, and just getting ready to drop into a canyon. And as we started to drop in, we heard 3 shots from the bottom of the canyon. And we're like, my dad's like, oh, it sounds like someone's found a bull. And man, I was super pissed. Young kid, I'm like, man, we walked all this way. Somebody in the bottom of the freaking canyon from the road shot an elk, and we got on the ridge and looked down, and sure enough, clear down to the bottom of the canyon, right offside the road. A young girl had shot a 4x5 raghorn bull. And I was so pissed. I just remember thinking, this sucks. I want to go home. And so my dad's like, that's all right. We'll find another one. And so we stayed up there till about 10 or 11. It was hot. It's middle of September in mostly desert country. And we're like, well, this ain't working out. So we dropped off, headed back to the truck. And just as we were getting to the truck, there was some cowboys offloading some cattle and getting ready to move some cattle with their horses. And the one cowboy just kept looking at us, weird look on his face. And he finally says, what are you guys hunting? And my dad's like, oh, they started a new elk hunt out here, and it's a youth hunt. We're just trying to find him a bull. And the cowboy looks around. He's like, you're hunting elk over here? And we're like, yeah. And he goes, no. You see that mountain way over there that's got the stripes in it that looks like a piece of cake? He goes, go over there. There's elk over there. And we were like, yeah, whatever. We've talked to a whole bunch of people. This guy's just trying to get us out of the way of his cows. So anyways, for the next 3 days, we covered a ton of country, and we saw 2 cow elk the whole time for the next 3 days.
So frustrating.
And so I was getting really, really sick and tired of elk. So finally one evening, the 4th or 5th evening of the hunt, my old man goes, well, we'll drive over by the Cake Mountain. That's just what we started calling it. We'll drive over by Cake Mountain and glass this big ridge and see what's going on. And we're like, all right. So we get over there, and we took quite a bit of time covering this new country, and it was a lot further than where we were staying. And got there just as the sun had went down. Still light, but the sun had went down. And my dad pulls up to a spot and stops and starts glassing. And just kind of at the same time, we both threw our glasses up, and out of this wash come a herd about 15 cows and this one bull. And I immediately, sorry, PG stream, I said, holy bleep, that thing is freaking huge, because we were not expecting to see big bulls on this hunt at all. And he come out onto the flat part of this big meadow, and then they were headed up into what we called Cake Mountain. And his cows were moving pretty good, but this bull had definitely had something happen to him recently, because he could not move nearly as quick as the cows. Mm-hmm. So we were under the impression that he had hurt himself or been shot or wounded. We weren't sure. He trotted. No matter how fast the cows were running, he couldn't get past the trot. And he was still on the move, and it was getting dark, and he was out there, I don't know, 600-700 yards, which nowadays guys would have just shot him.
Right.
But me as a 14-year-old, definitely not a shot I'm going to take. And I remember my dad just saying he's got lots of masts, and he has a good whale tail on the one side. Doesn't have very good tines. And my dad just doing the guide thing, reading off what he saw. Mm-hmm. And he went up into the cedars of this big Cake Mountain and lost him as it got dark. And so my plan was, I already had my plans made. I didn't care what Dad said. My plan was next morning we were going to be sitting right up against the edge of that mountain, so that when he came out to feed, we were going to shoot him. And my old man tells me, no, you've missed 5 days of school. You will be going to school tomorrow. Oh. And after school, I will pick you up at 2:30, and we will hunt the evening.
Oh my gosh!
And you want to talk about one pissed off teenager?
Oh, I was gonna say I would be so pissed all day at school.
They got nothing done, because I didn't care about what was being discussed. I was like, there's a big bull out in the desert that needs to be killed.
Priorities.
So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, because nothing got done. So, anyways, right off the bat, 2:30 comes. I'm out front. He's waiting. We jump in the truck, and he's got the 4-wheeler hooked up with the trailer, and we take off. And we had a plan, same thing. He had similar plans to me. We were going to go on these rolling hills right at the base of Cake Mountain and watch him come out and shoot him. And we also had called my uncle and told him what we had seen. And to meet him here, but this was before the days of dropping pins and everything else. So it was best description. So we get there. Uncle's not there. I'm like, well, this ain't going to work. We're not going to wait for him. So me and my dad push up on this ridge, and we stop and sit down. My dad turns his radio on because they had discussed having radios if they needed to get a hold of us. And we sit underneath this big cedar for what seemed like ever. And no bull comes out. I'm like, this is BS. We should have been here in the morning. So I'm just getting more mad the whole time. I'm like, he freaking made me not be here and kill this elk, blah, blah, blah. You know, all this stuff's running through my head. I'm just mad. I'm like, this is stupid. And anyways, all of a sudden, we get a call on the radio. And it's about that same time of night that we saw him. It's getting almost dark. And my uncle all of a sudden comes on the radio and says, where in the hell are you guys at? This bull is out here in the flat.
Oh my!
We need to go kill him right now. And we're like, oh. So
it's on.
We sprint all the way back to the four-wheeler, go running down there, and just as we get to the four-wheeler, my uncle comes flying up on the hill on his four-wheeler. And he goes, I don't know how you're going to kill him because they're right out in the freaking open. There's no way to get on them. And my dad goes, well, that bull can't run very fast. He's like, I think you just go straight at him. Go straight at him with the four-wheeler on that rough old just two-track trail and see what he does. He says, the cows, and my dad's like, the cows are probably going to run, but we know he couldn't really run. And I was like, okay, and it was kind of unsportsmanlike, but he's big and I want to shoot him.
And you're 14.
So, yeah. So I hopped on the back of my uncle's four-wheeler, and he's like, don't load the gun, but get it off your shoulder so that when we get off, it's easy access.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I get it on there, and this two-track was not a road for going fast, but he's flying. And so I'm trying to hold on. I'm trying to hold on to the gun, and we're just ripping out through this flat. And we get to about 450 yards, and the cows look at us, and they just take off, going out across the flat 100 miles an hour. And it was almost comical, and I kind of felt bad for him. But the bull looks at us, looks at his cows, looks at us, and you could just see his whole body just like take a deep breath, like, oh, my hell, I'm going to have to run. And so he starts going, but his best effort, he just couldn't run. And he was going probably about as fast as we were. Like, we were slowly gaining on him. And so I don't know how far it was, but my uncle just says, he's about 350. Can you shoot him from here? And I'm like, sure. I don't think if we're gonna run out of two-track, and it's gonna have to happen. So my uncle slams on the brakes, slides the wheeler off the road. I jump down, lean across the front rack of the four-wheeler, and he's still on the move, not running but covering ground. And I remember the first shot. When I put it on him, I knew when I pulled the trigger I was wrong. I was like, you are not far enough out in front of this animal. I shot. My uncle goes, way behind him. You got to get out in front of him. So I rack a second one. And I remember putting the crosshairs and kind of just moving the rifle just like a shotgun when you're shooting a duck. Put it right on his brisket, in front of his brisket, and just followed through. And boom! And I didn't even, the recoil kicked me off the gun, so I didn't see the hit. But as soon as I shot, I heard the, big smack. And then it was over because he was still going, but there was no way I was hitting him again.
Right.
Buck fever got the hooks in me, something fierce. And so my uncle's like, you hit him, but I don't know how good you hit him. Shoot him again. And so I shot a third time. Neither one of us have any idea where the bullet went. I put a fourth one in, and at that point he had come to a stop, and he was doing the stiff-legged wobblies. And I remember putting it on his shoulder, and it was just like a figure eight, man. The freaking crosshairs were all over the place. And my uncle's like, hit him again. I shot, and he's like, you were like 14 feet over his back.
Oh my God.
And so I'm like, I need to reload. So at that point I'm out. So I'm ripping the bolt open, and I start jamming shells in. And then I just remember my uncle, who was a pretty buff dude, just backhanded me in the back of the chest, just slapping my back. He's down, freaking awesome. And I was like, wind's knocked out of me, and I'm like, yeah, trying to catch my breath and all excited. And so then we drove over to him, and my dad and my aunt and my cousin all ended up showing up, and got to take a few pictures. And the best part is we shot him right out in the flat, so we just winched him on gutted him and winched him on full body.
That's the way to do it right there.
The best kind of elk pack out. Yeah, just winched him up full body onto the trailer, and it was a good time. He ended up going 321 after drying and stuff as an open bull permit. First bull a kid's ever taken. He was a heck of a bull.
Oh, that's a really nice bull.
And I'm super thankful because I'm not like Taryn. I didn't get tied up in elk point creep for 30 years. I killed a 320 and was like, that's good enough.
Oh, dude, if you could shoot a 320 bull like that every few years, I'd be super happy with it. I know there's, and I shouldn't say I'm not a trophy hunter. I am. I like to shoot big things as much as anybody does. But if you could shoot a 320 bull every few years, that made me so happy. I'd be okay with that. I could live with that, to be honest with you.
Yep. It was a heck of a good time, especially for a 14 or 15-year-old kid to take a bull like that, and just a cool experience that timed up perfect with a hunt that was opening, that they knew some bigger class bulls had not been hunted. So it was a pretty cool deal. Dude,
how about that feeling when you're like, you come up on your dead elk, like, you know that's your elk, and you're like, that is mine, like, that guy is going home with me, like, that's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, and like, you're driving home in the dark, but we have, we're just on an open flatbed four-wheeler trailer, and you have an 800-pound animal with a 5x6 rack sticking up, like, ratcheted to the flatbed, and every dude on the freeway is like, whoa, because you're in central Utah where everyone hunts, and they're blowing the horn and giving you thumbs up, and yeah, it was a pretty cool deal.
Dude, especially as that young of a kid. I mean, when I shoot an elk right now, I turn into a 14-year-old kid, though. I get so freaking excited. It's stupid how excited I get. So, but yeah,
I'm the same way when I take any critter that I've been chasing, man. I'm like, nowadays I can kind of manage the buck fever for a minute, but if stuff falls apart, I'm still just a mess. I'm over there like, give me a minute.
It's weird. Like, I don't really get buck fever. Like when I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone.
Right.
Buck fever doesn't really hit me until after the animal's dead. And then once the animal's dead, I'm like, then I start I start shaking. I'm like, oh, this is, the adrenaline kicks in then, and all the that epinephrine in my body is just running rampant, and it's awesome. But yeah, once if I'm in the moment where I'm pulling the trigger, I don't know, I go into a different zone at that point.
Yeah, and I'm usually that way, I'd say, for the most part, as long as, the worst case doesn't happen, and it's, you have to shoot 3 or 4 times and you miss. Then 3 or 4 or 5 times, it's everything. It's the adrenaline, it's the frustration, that kind of, it's almost not even buck fever, it's just falling apart. Yeah, falling apart. But yeah, the buck fever thing definitely comes once they're down. Like, we won't get off on a tangent. I will save it for our bow hunting stories. But I do have one that's a really good buck fever story.
Oh man, I don't know. I love that feeling though. Once you have that animal down, you're like, yep, that guy is going home with me. Like, I don't know. There just isn't a better feeling. I absolutely love it, especially on elk, because elk are so big. When you walk up there and you're like, that's a big freaking animal. I mean, it's in your position. That's great, because you're like, oh, I'm gonna winch this thing in the back of the truck, and this is gonna be easy. When you walk up there and you're like, that's a big old animal. I gotta put that thing on my back. That's daunting.
And that was the funny part. We winched him up on there with the four-wheeler winch, and he was so heavy, he actually broke one of the bolts that held. Wow. So the trailer had a built-in swing down for the four-wheeler, so you could flip it up, pin it, and then drop it. And when we dropped it to winch him up the ramp, he actually broke one of the bolts that held the ramp.
Wow.
So,
dude, they're big. They are big.
I mean, I figure, I mean, he'd been basically, because that big open valley they were feeding in was basically just waist high yellow, almost like alfalfa. It was grass, but it was just yellow grass for miles. And I think he'd just been eating basically hay for the whole
Jeez.
summer, and he had just packed on a ton of weight. He was a great big body bull, and we found one once the taxidermist opened him up, and we opened him up and broke him down for the meat and stuff. We found his front shoulder, his one front shoulder had a bunch of like uh, oh like why can't I think of it, like trauma, like blood
Like
coagulated
bloodshot?
and bruised and stuff. Yeah, but I didn't hit him in the shoulder. He was kind of quartering away, so I hit him just in front of the back leg, and it went up through,
Oh,
quartering into him, and hit the lung and the heart, and then stopped in his brisket. So I never even touched that one, his left shoulder. So we figure he fell off a cliff or got into a fight with a bull, and we're
yeah.
more inclined it was a fight, because when the taxidermist we caped him up to the head or whatever, and then the taxidermist pulled his hide off. He had a bunch of puncture wounds on
Yeah.
his face from fighting. So figure he got hurt. He won enough to take the cows, but he had hurt himself pretty bad on that shoulder. So
Dude, that bull I shot this last year was the same way. He had on his right shoulder had a stab wound, and I mean, it was pretty obvious that an antler had gone into his leg,
muscle.
but yeah, it was nasty. Like it was disgusting.
Yeah, that's why his one shoulder, we basically got nothing off of it. It was
Hmm.
just all coagulated and messed up. So
Hmm. It's amazing how tough those things are to go through that and still be able to be out there keeping their harem together and doing their thing. I mean, that's amazing.
yeah, it's a pretty tough animals in general, man. The will to survive is pretty amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, so hey, can you post up some pictures of that bowl on our
Oh yeah,
social media, so
yeah,
that people, when they listen to the podcast, they can go and check it out?
yeah. I'll post some pictures of it. I've got some in the field. We didn't take many, and that was long before cell phones and digital cameras.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll take some pictures of the when he's on the ground, and then I'll post some taxidermy photos of him. So
Wait a second, you were 14 in 2003?
14 or 15, yeah. I'm
Golly, you're a baby. Holy cow.
I'm I'm not that young. I'm 32.
Jeez.
It's just we're in 2021, man. We're
Golly, it
getting
just
old.
sounds like so, 2000. So I graduated in '04. That feels like
Yeah.
yesterday, but I guess when you think about
Son of,
'04 to 21, boy, whew.
yeah. And let's say I graduated in '06, so you're just a couple years older than me.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I guess that's true.
because 15 and then you graduated 18, right? So I think it
I
was
guess that's true.
14 or 15. So,
Man, crazy, crazy. Well, lucky bugger.
yeah. Yeah, sometimes it pays to be better than, or was it better to be lucky than good?
Oh yeah, heck yeah. It's much better to be lucky than good.
But
Just ask Curtis that.
but it is a tactic. If you know he can't move good, or you need to, sometimes running can get you where you need to go, or going fast.
Hmm.
Sometimes being quiet's the way, and sometimes busting butt to a position can work.
Oh, I can't tell you how many times I've had to do that when you're just like, "Yep, time to move," and you got to move. You're running through that
Yep,
mountain to get to the next ridge or the next little area, or to get in front of those animals to get. I
yep,
mean, yep. Sometimes you got to move.
yep.
All right, well, cool. Well, I'll tell. I've got some fun stories, some fun elk stories. I'm going to tell the story from this last year. I think most people are pretty familiar with that story. If anybody's been on our social media, you'll see the picture of the elk on the llama. I think that's how everybody kind of knows that hunt is the llama
The
hunt.
llama elk,
Dude, it was
llama elk.
llamas are the way to go, man. Like that was it was so awesome. Like not that they can pack a ton, they can pack 80 pounds apiece. So one llama can usually handle a bull elk after it's boned out, and
Right.
even then you're kind of pushing it when you put the antlers on top of it. But oh man, it was so fun. So I've hunted elk here in Colorado since I've become a resident here a couple times, and it's been okay. If anybody else has come to Colorado to hunt elk, most of the units that you can draw with 0 points, or you buy it over the counter, you're not really expecting much. Um, so this last year, I've got some friends that we started hunting together, and we go to the Total Archery Challenge together and things like that. We decided to put in for this hunt and do it in a way that none of us had ever done before. None of us had ever used llamas. We've used horses in the past. All of us have used horses in the past. We never used llamas, and so we did first rifle for here in Colorado, and we got llamas and we had to draw out. This wasn't an over the counter unit that we went to, so we did have to draw out for the unit. And there were, let's see, there were five of us that drew out for it. We put in for a group, and here in Colorado you can put in for groups, and basically you all draw or none of you draw. Anyways, had a blast. I mean, we hiked. We got to the trailhead. We got the llamas all set up. And we hiked back in the trail about 5 miles to where a spring was, and I mean, we were like, all of our water came from the spring. We had to filter all the water that we got. We had to prepare all of our food and take it in. We ate a lot of bars. We definitely we ate pretty good though. So what we did, this is a tip and tactic for anybody that's listening. We took in a little propane stove, and then prior to going out, we ended up buying a bunch of like those Stouffer's lasagnas and fettuccine alfredos and things like that. We cooked them all up, and then we put them into single serving and put them in vacuum seal bags. And then all we had to take up to camp with us was that stove and then a pot. We filled the pot full of water from the spring, heated it up on the stove, and just dropped those vacuum sealed bags in there to warm up the lasagna or whatever we were eating that was already cooked. Dude, we ate like kings up there. It was so freaking good. So,
So you've got the exact opposite way, the two opposite ways to hunt elk.
yeah, exactly.
In 5 miles, and we're cooking and getting your water out of a stream, and then you've got mine where we literally drove to the elk and put him on the trailer.
Yeah, but you're 14, so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was pretty intense, and that's the other thing about llamas. Again, they can only carry 80 pounds, so each one of us guys that were hiking in, we had to pack in at least 50 pounds on each one of our backs, that 5 miles in. So it was a climb the entire 5 miles. So it was rough getting up there. But once we were there, man, we had a pretty sweet camp set up. We had bought in a big tent and all stayed in the tent. We had a stove, a really lightweight stove that we packed in there. And so once we got there and got the water filtered and all that, we actually stayed pretty comfortable, slept on cots, and we had those little lightweight backpacking cots. But so opening morning, we went onto a ridge, and my buddy Lee, he actually shot his elk that day. He shot a beautiful 6-point elk. And for those that hunt these units in Colorado, these 0-point units in Colorado, very rarely do you get a nice 6-point elk. So, but it was opening morning. There were three of us that split off together, and I mean, talking about running to hunt, we're clear up on the top of this ridge, and we see these elk clear down in the very bottom. We call it Hell's Canyon because it was just a miserable area that nobody wanted to go down into, but that's where the elk was. So guess where the idiots go to is right to there. But I won't spend too much time on his, but he made an awesome shot. We got just above him, made about a 350-yard shot, pounded him twice right in the vitals, and he probably went about 20 yards, and then he died right next to a spring down there in the bottom. It was just awesome. I mean, everything that you expected to and hope it would be. So we got his all taken care of that day. That was Saturday, and then on Sunday we went back out, kind of that same area, and it snowed a lot Sunday morning. In fact, we didn't even go out Sunday morning. We just this sounds horrible. We stayed in our tent and in our cots. It was so freaking cold and snowing like crazy till about 1 o'clock. And then we're like, all right, we got to get out of here. So me and my buddy Chad, we ended up going out and hiked clear to this furthest point, just to, more than anything, just to get out of the tent and put some miles on the boots. Well, him and I kind of glassed there for a little while, kind of down where Lee had shot his, a little bit further past that, and then was like, I'm gonna start walking back, kind of go a different way, and he kind of went a different way as well. And I found these tracks in the snow, and I was like, well, it snowed just a few hours ago, so these are pretty fresh. So I started following these tracks, um, and then Chad was kind of doing the same thing, following some other tracks. Pretty soon, him and I came together, and we're like, man, this is crazy. Like, the elk have been in here just barely, and then all of a sudden, I mean, just as soon as we said that, we hear this elk bugle, and he's no joke. I swear, he was like 2 feet in front of me. The way it sounded. Um,
Right.
as soon as he bugles, this herd of elk come across the mount or the we're on kind of this saddle. This whole herd of elk come through, and I could see the bull coming through the trees. And it's funny because and I don't know why I said this to Chad, but I was like, Chad, is he legal? That was my first thought, is he a legal bull? Because in Colorado you got to have a 6-inch brow tine or a 4 point on one side. I don't know why that was the thing that I thought, but I said, Chad, is he legal? He's like, and he kind of like laughed at me. He's like, yeah. And so, I mean, right there.
Do you have eyeballs?
Yeah, exactly. But I was, and as soon as he said that, I went right into that mode that I was talking about a little bit ago. I just went into, I call it the killer instinct mode. I swear to every human being, we're animals, we're hunters at our core of who we are, and I just kind of went in that killer instinct mode, and he ran no more than, gosh, I wouldn't say more than 50, 60 yards in front of us. This is a rifle hunt, so I pulled up and smacked him right in the vitals, and he kept running. I was like, oh, frick, did I, I mean, in the moment, I was like, gosh, dang it, did I miss? And I looked at Chad, and I said, did I miss him? And he's like, there's no way. And so we walk up there, and they kind of went off the saddle. And as soon as we kind of got to where I'd shot him, you could hear just crashing. I was like, oh, yes. And we looked down the mountain, and there he is, just because he hit that snow, and he just slid. It was like a slip and slide down the mountain for him. When you shoot an animal in the heart, they kind of get that extra oomph and go. And he got that, and he slid down the mountain. But this was in the evening, obviously, and so we walk up there, and it's almost dark. We got a few pictures, but they're pretty crappy pictures. Like, I'll post a few of them, but it was getting dark. We radioed to all the other guys in our group, the other 3 guys in our group, and said, "Hey guys, big bull down," and they came and they helped us get him all. We quartered him up right there, hung him up in a tree so the bears wouldn't get him, and hiked back out, but. Dude, those moments are, gosh, they're pretty special when you get in those moments, almost like a spiritual thing. And I don't mean to get all weird right here, but you just have that brotherhood, that camaraderie. It's a pretty special time, and for anybody that has experienced it, I'm sure you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. For those that haven't, try to get that experience because it's pretty amazing to share it. But he was a 5x6 bull, really really pretty bull. He'd been raking a lot. The rut was a little bit later this past year here in Colorado, so he'd been raking and rubbing a ton, and so he had a lot of the orange from the trees that were in that area into his antlers, and so his antlers are a really cool, almost caramel color, and just a gorgeous bull. And yeah, going back to, I would take that 320 bull all the time. I would shoot my bull every year. If I knew that I could never get a 400-inch bull, if I had the choice, I could shoot a 400-inch bull or I could shoot my bull every single year. I would take my bull every single year because that experience was so much fun.
Yeah. And you ended up filming some of that hunt, right?
I did, and so I put a video together. I just put it on my personal YouTube page. But coming up this Sunday, so for those of you guys that are listening, this coming Sunday, I'm going to put it up on our eHunter YouTube page. So go and check it out. If you're not subscribed to our YouTube page, make sure you do and hit that bell so you know when we post new videos. But yeah, I'll post the video. It's actually pretty dang cool. You'll see the country that we're in. I mean, it is beautiful. Anytime you can hunt elk when in the fall, when the colors are changing, leaves are falling, they're in the rut, they're bugling. I mean, you just cannot beat it. So yeah, I'll post that video on Sunday.
Okay, that'll be cool. Sorry, that'll be cool. Yeah, because I don't know if I've seen it. I guess I'm not a very good co-host. I don't know if I've watched it all the way through.
What kind of friend are you?
I know. Huh?
It's fun. It really was a lot of fun. And if you never hunted with llamas, it's kind of a fun video to watch just for the llamas. Llamas are the weirdest freaking animals. I mean, they have just such unique personalities, and they're weirdos. I called one of them. His name was Alamosa. I'm like, dude, you're just such a weirdo. I called him weirdo the entire time because he'd get all weird if you try to touch him, and I mean,
And
it's fun.
they're kind of cool because they're kind of their own guard dogs too.
Mhm.
They're pretty standoffish towards predators and stuff. So they're kind of attitude Annies.
Well, they're like a car alarm too for you. If you're like, so to have them in camp is so awesome. So we're sitting in camp. Oh gosh, I can't remember what day it was. It was after we shot our those two elk. Um, we were having lunch there in camp, and this porcupine starts walking kind of on near our camp. And those things, no joke, it's like a car alarm. Blah 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 blah. Like they make the weirdest noise. But you know something's going on. Whether it's a porcupine, whether it's a bear, a mountain lion, anything, they're gonna let you
Right.
know, and they're gonna let the entire neighborhood know. It's
Rich.
yeah, it's kind of awesome. So yeah, they're a cool thing to have in camp,
That's pretty dang cool.
even if they are weird. But that was so much fun. I love elk hunting. I mean, it's just there's nothing better. I'll share another quick story for elk hunting. I know this is kind of getting long, but um, bow hunting elk. If you guys have never bow hunted elk, that's I think that's where the challenge really comes, but also it's a lot of fun. I mean, I could have killed my bull this last year with a bow easily. I mean, like I said, 50, 60 yards is what I shot him with with my gun. But this has been several years ago. We were hunting elk in Utah, and with my again with my bow, and it was with my brother. We pulled up on this ridge, and we could see these elk moving down this finger, this draw, and we could see the elk that we wanted to get in there. And so him and I just kind of we were in a side by side. Him and I kind of just bailed off, going back to that whole running thing. Seriously, him and I got on the other side of the ridge where they couldn't see us or hear us, and we flew down that mountain trying to get ahead of them. And we did. We like they were just feeding, so they weren't moving very quick. And we figured if we could get on the other side where they couldn't see us, even if we made noise, they probably really wouldn't care too much. But I don't think they could
Right.
hear us anyways. So we snuck down to the bottom and actually came up just a little bit on the draw that they were coming down, and kind of hid behind some trees. And you could hear them coming. Like it was like there was probably 30 elk coming
Freaking
down.
herd of elephants, man,
Yeah, like
breaking everything.
they are not quiet at all, which was nice because it kind of covered our sound. And um, so we're standing there, and I thought that we were gonna get busted because there you can see him, like when you're looking through a pine tree and you can kind of see the animal through the pine tree. You can't see the details of it, but you can see it coming.
Right.
And I was like, oh man, this first one is gonna be a cow, and it's gonna see us. It's gonna spook the whole herd. We're screwed. So I was like, you know what? Maybe it's the bull. And I'm just hoping. I was like, just maybe it's the bull. So I could see him coming. So I drew back my bow, and the tree that he was coming around was, I'm not kidding you, 5 yards in front of me. And I was like, it's either the bull, and this is over. I'm gonna shoot him right here at 5 yards, or it's the cow. It's gonna scare every elk away. And all of a sudden, as soon as he comes around the tree, there's his antlers. I'm like, holy freak, you've got to be kidding me. And I'm looking down through my peep at my pins, and dude, I don't even know what pin I use, but at 5 yards, who gives a crap? All of them are gonna hit.
Yeah.
So let the arrow fly, nailed that thing. He ran across down to the bottom of that draw, over to the other draw, kind of where we had come down. Um, Tumbled, crashed, fumbled, farted, died right there. He didn't make it more than 150 yards from where I shot him. And oh man, it was the coolest experience. I mean, 5 yards on a bull elk is pretty intense, but it was awesome. So
Yeah,
what's that?
that's pretty. Oh, I was gonna say that's pretty dang cool. I've got one story too with having a bull right in our lap as well. I'll share with you here in a second once you're finished up.
Oh, no, that's it. That it was just so cool to shoot a bull that close, or to shoot an elk, any elk that close. My brother shot a cow elk, kind of a similar situation, actually in that same exact area, just on a different hillside, but almost the exact same situation. The cow elk walked around the corner, shot it with a bow. She actually died. She dropped right where she was at and died right there. Which was pretty cool. You don't usually see that with a bow, but.
Yeah, easy track job there.
Oh yeah, yeah. She didn't go anywhere. We both had tags in our pocket, and I was really pissed because I wanted to shoot her, but um, I couldn't complain when he shot her and she dropped in her tracks. But that was a really cool story. And again, kind of going back to that tips and tactics of sometimes you got to move, and especially with elk, like if you can see what they're doing and you know your play, you got to make that move. You can't sit there and wait, because if you sit there and wait, they're gone. So tell me your story about getting close.
Yeah, so kind of the same thing. It was when I was young. So years ago, my grandpa had a cabin in Clear Creek in Utah. People that aren't familiar with Clear Creek, it's an old mining area just above Schofield Reservoir. And so we used to go there every year in the fall. And so me and my cousin, who was a little bit older than me, got the bright idea. Neither of us could drive, but we got the bright idea that when we went to this cabin, we were going to take our camo and our hunting stuff, and we were going to go call in an elk. Mind you, I think this was the summer before I shot my bull, so I had no experience other than being with my dad on hunts of calling in anything. So my cousin was not much of an elk hunter, but he went and bought an elk call because he thought this was going to be so cool, and I went and stole one of my dad's Carlton fighting cow calls, and we got up early. It was about 5:45, 6 o'clock, just starting to get light, and we hoofed it up. So the cabins were kind of in this like tight-knit community where they're all stacked pretty close to each other. Mm-hmm. And then off to the west of the cabins, this road went, if you stayed on this road, it actually went clear up on the top of the Skyline Drive eventually. And so we didn't have the wheelers or nothing, and we wanted to be sneaky. So we got in our camo and we stole some of my dad's scent killer, because scent killer used to be the bomb back in the day. And we doused ourselves in scent killer, and we started hoofing it up this road. And we got up that road probably, 500-600 yards. And then I had an area in mind from being up there for years. There was a old beat up logging road that you couldn't even hardly take even a four-wheeler on anymore, that branched off. And I was like, let's go up in those pines, find a spot, and we'll just sit and see what happens. And so we followed this logging road up there a couple hundred yards, probably about the same distance that we went up that other road. And I just saw this huge, 30 or 40 foot tall pine, two of us sitting down around just this great big pine that had fallen over. And I was like, oh, that's perfect, man. We'll sit right behind that log and we'll just call and see what happens. And, at first we're all excited. We're like, this is going to work. This is going to work. And so we sit down and we're being smart. We're taking breaks. We're calling a little bit, just kind of, mind our business. Well, 20 or 25 minutes goes by, and we're two young kids and kind of losing hope that it's going to happen. So we kind of start screwing around, and we're not even really calling normal anymore. We're doing weird stuff. We're doing short calls. We're doing big, long, and just kind of dicking off and just being dumb. And, we're all kind of being silly. And my cousin had this old, camcorder, but it was the one that put like the medium size tape in it. It's not a VHS, but it was kind of that weird medium sized one, and he took it with us because we were going to film it coming in. And we're just kind of messing around, and it's pretty thick, because we're in these pines, and across this canyon, all of a sudden we just hear this crack. Just loud limb break. We both look at each other, and my cousin's like, oh, dude, it's not an elk. I bet it's a bear. I bet we called in a freaking bear. So he starts freaking out that we've called in the bear. And I'm like, no, shut up. I'm like, I don't know what it is. Just shut up. just cow call normal and give it every, couple minutes, and we'll see what happens. And he's like, I've got my pistol on me just in case. By the way, it was a little Browning Buckmark 22. It wasn't going to do anything if it was a bear. And so I'm like, it's not a bear, dude. It's probably just, I don't know. It's not a bear. And so we get real quiet, and we're like tucked right up against this log because we didn't realize, how if we were in a hunting situation, it would have been a very bad spot to sit because you couldn't move. So anyways, we're sitting there, and it was probably about 5 to 7 minutes after we heard this big loud crack. We're just kind of sitting there, and I'm watching. So the hill dropped away, so we were kind of on a slant, and we could probably see for about 50 or 60 yards, and then the hill dropped pretty abruptly. And I kept looking at this one. So there was one little quakey that was trying to grow in all these pines, and it was just, as big around as, I don't know, smaller than your wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept looking at it, and every so often I'd come back to it kind of as my marker to look around. And one of these times I looked, and I was like, that looks different. What am I looking at? And I kept staring at it. And it seemed like forever, but it was probably only 15 or 20 seconds. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that I was looking at about 65 yards away, the top of his, so this bull, I could see his antlers and the top of his head and just his eyes. I couldn't see his face. And I was like,
oh my gosh.
I'm like, oh, and he was not huge, but thinking back, I think he was a 5 on one side and 6 on the other. So nothing, I don't even think he was as big as the bull I took. So he's probably like a 300, 290. And so I reach over, because we've got this big log blocking us. I reach over and grab my cousin by the sleeve, and I'm like jerking on it. And he like turns his head real slow and looks at me, and I'm like, my mouth, I don't even say anything. I'm like, by the quakey. So he looks, and he sees it immediately, because he looks and he's like slowly puts his hand down on the camera, and I'm like, dude, don't move. I'm like, he's right here. And so we were so afraid that he was so close, because he was only like 60 at that point. We laid down, like, because we were sitting down, so we just slowly like laid down behind the log, and we were just like kind of using our abs to just see over the logs. And so I start just slow, soft cow calling, and he comes up onto the level so we can see him in his full glory. And his eyes are just bugged out of his mind. He hasn't bugled. He hasn't done anything. And this is peak September, but he is looking for love. You can just, he's got snot dripping, and his eyes are bulging out of his head. And I cow call, and he does like this little, like, half-hearted, like a guttural thing, not an actual bugle.
Mm-hmm.
And he just starts trotting. Like, he's only 60 yards away, and he starts trotting, coming right at us. And my cousin's like, he whispers, he's going to come over the log. I'm like, no, he's not. It's fine. Like, it's okay, dude.
We're all right. We're all right.
And it's just like, I'm just like, not even saying anything, just put my finger to my mouth, like, shut up, don't talk. And I stopped calling, because now he's within like 30 yards, and I'm like, I don't want him to actually run over us, because my cousin is adamant he's going to come over the log. And so I actually laid all the way down and turned, so I was calling uphill, so it sounded like the cow was moving away from him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do it, and he comes, I'm not kidding you, he came right to the log. He's on the other side of the log from us.
Oh my gosh.
He's like, you can hear him like these big guttural raspy breaths. And he's dripping snot and crap all over the log. And he's literally like, if I wouldn't have caught him because he's so fast, but if I could have just reached out and he wouldn't have moved, I probably would have touched him.
Oh my gosh.
And we're both, dude, we're just like, I don't know how he didn't know, because we're both just like shaking like leaves,
pissing down your leg.
We're just young kids. I'm like, dude, what do we do? And so he's right there, and my cousin, he's got the camera, and he's got his elbow bent, and he's just got the camera just above the log, and he's just panning like left and right, recording, trying to get footage of it. And he's been doing this since the bull came over the hill, so we have no idea if we're getting any footage. And we're both shaking, and he just looks at me, and he goes, he just moused. He's like, I'm gonna jump up, and I'm like, don't jump up, dude.
No, don't do that.
He's and like he's right here. I'm like, don't move. I'm like, he might kill us. I'm like, I don't know what he's gonna do. He is pissed. He wants his girlfriend. I'm like, don't move.
Yeah.
And my cousin's like, he goes, mouse, I can't see if I'm getting any film. And I'm like, who cares?
Yeah,
Don't
who
do
cares?
nothing.
I'm enjoying
So,
the experience. Don't do
yeah,
anything.
I'm like, don't do anything. So we sit there and it seemed like forever, but it's probably just 30 or 40 more seconds.
Right.
And my cousin's like, I'm gonna do it. And so he moves, and that bull. I mean, the brief look of, no other way to put it. The brief look of oh shit on that bull's face when my cousin moved, and just everything blew up, dude. I mean, dirt, snot, because he even did it. Like when my cousin moved, he just went. The bull just blew snot and crap and kicked dirt all over us and just took off.
Oh
and
my gosh.
I'm like, why did you move? He's like, dude, he was going to step on us. He was going to come over the log. I'm like, no, he wasn't. He was going to go around it. He's like, no, he was going to step on us. I'm like, no, he wasn't going to step on us, dude. And so we had this little brief argument, but the bull took off. And so then we played it back, and all we got of all that panning is we got one pan. We've got a part of, you can see the bull's, what I was talking about. You can see like his eyeballs up on the hill. And then when he jumped up, or so when he was panning, we got a few leg pictures because he didn't tip it up high enough, and then or like video of the legs. And then when he jumped, you can just see the bull's, like, I think it was the bull's left side of his rack just ripping out of the frame because he was running out of there. And so not even a hunting story, but a bull that was within 2 or 3 yards of us probably.
Dude, that's the thing though with elk though. Like even if you're not hunting them, I mean,
yeah,
I shouldn't even just say elk. Everything. I mean, elk in the rut. We've had this conversation on another Shooting the Bull podcast. What's the best big game animal to hunt? I love elk, but dude, just going out, go out in September and go call elk. Even if you don't have a rifle or a bow in your hand, just go call elk and call them in and see how close you can get to them. Dude, that is exhilarating.
Oh, it's an adrenaline dump. I mean, I'm easily into that stuff anyways, excited about that stuff. I mean, I've had fawns and does and fawns come right on top of me, come walking right past me. And it was actually one of the first times I ever heard deer vocalize, and they were just they were talking to each other, and they came within, I don't know how this was on a rifle hunt. I was in blaze orange. I just didn't move. And they came within like 6 yards and walked right past the tree I was leaning against.
Wow, that's impressive.
And I was shaking, dude, because I was just like, they're right here. It's nothing, it's no bucks, but it was just exciting to have wildlife and animals that close, not knowing you're there and just doing their thing.
We'll need to make our next Shooting the Bull podcast to be about, does camo really work? Or do you really need camo?
Yeah. There's a whole conversation right there.
If a deer can do that when you're wearing bright orange, blaze orange,
it's a movement thing, man. Like, I'm sure if I had moved, they would have keyed on me for sure. But, just being still and in a position, it'd be different if I was rushing to get to a position or moving at all, but just where I was set and they just come by me, they had no idea. Wind was right.
And I'll bet they still probably even smelled you or smelled something there, but probably, like you said, they didn't see that movement, so it wasn't too crazy. I don't know. I guess if they probably would have got a good whiff of you, if the wind would have been in the other direction, I bet they would have been
really bad. And they probably knew something was up. I mean, even just their sixth senses, because they weren't like, it wasn't like they were sitting around and feeding. They were moving through there, and they didn't slow down. They weren't running either, but it was. I'm sure they just didn't feel quite right. But yeah, they come right past me.
That's amazing. Gosh.
But yeah, elk hunting's fun, man. It's an adrenaline to have that big of something right in your lap. And the only thing that would have made it better is if he'd have just ripped a bugle right on top of us.
Oh, I do have a story that we did do that. We took my grandpa, I'll make this really quick. My grandpa, who's deaf, we took him out, and he wasn't completely deaf at the time. He is now, but he hadn't heard an elk bugle in gosh, 20, 25 years. Me and my brother called in an elk. We're sitting at this little trough, and we called in an elk. And he came in right up to the trough. We're just sitting there, and he's like right in front of our face, and ripped off a bugle right there in front of us. And my grandpa, again, who's at the time was, I mean, he was pretty much completely deaf, heard. I mean, because that's deafening. When they bugle, I mean, that is unreal how loud they are. And actually, he's the one that scared the elk away, because as soon as he bugled, my grandpa goes, "I heard that," and that elk, boom, took off.
See ya.
So, yeah, he's like, "Nope, not standing around for that." Oh gosh. Well, awesome, man. Well, that's gosh, I honestly could talk elk for hours and hours and hours. So this has been a lot of fun. I hope that everybody else has enjoyed these stories and maybe picked up a little bit from them. If you guys have any questions about these, let us know. We'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you guys have stories that you want to share with us, we would love to hear it. But, goodness gracious, we could lay it down on some tape and record it and share it with everybody else as well. So if you guys have stories you want to share with us, let us know. I guess before we go, Seth, we ought to do something a little bit different. This is I just been thinking about this while you were just barely talking. We ought to give something away for those people that have stuck with us to the end. What do you think about doing that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
How about this? So, for those of you guys that are still with us, hopefully everybody's still with us, but you guys that stuck to the end, let's do this. So, I've got an eHunter hat and an Onyx Premium membership. I will give it to, we'll do a random draw. So, anybody that, let's see. I'm trying to think of what I want you guys to do. Let's do this. So Seth is going to post the picture of his elk that he shot when he was 15. Take a screenshot of that picture, post it to your Instagram story. Everybody that posts that to your Instagram story, I will put you guys all in for the drawing for the hat and the Premium Onyx membership. I'll do this. What's today? Today is the 26th of April. This will probably go out tomorrow. So let's say till May 11th is when I will do that. So sound good, Seth?
Yeah, I'll get them pictures up tomorrow so they have ample opportunity to do it.
Cool. Make sure you guys, when you guys post that to your story, to tag us so that it sends us a message, put you in for the drawing on the hat and the Onyx membership. So, all right, guys, we'll let you go. Appreciate you sticking with us. Hope you enjoyed these stories. We enjoyed sharing with you, and we'll continue to try and do this, share some of these stories, and try to share some tips along the way. So before we go, we'll give another shout out to our sponsors for the podcast, Vortex Optics and PhoneSkope. Appreciate them. And Seth, appreciate you being on with me again.
Yeah, no problem. And guys, we'll probably be doing these pretty often, so next week or whatnot we'll discuss a different hunting story, so we're looking forward to it. Thanks, awesome, guys.
Yep, thanks, guys. See ya.